Hey guys, it is Wednesday, January 15th. Bitcoin's at just over 100,000. And today's episode will be on the path to hyper-Bitcoinization. I want to specifically look at the behavior of goods and services prices relative to dollars, which we now view as the core unit of account, the core stable thing, and talk about how that changes when you start pricing those things in Bitcoin, not just today, but also in the future, and how we kind of go from here to there. So I think it's going to be an interesting thought experiment. I'm very happy with this idea that I had, and I hope you guys will follow me through with it. As usual, if you guys are following me on YouTube, I would ask that you come and subscribe to my YouTube. Completely free. It just makes an old guy happy. I'm trying to get more YouTube traffic. And you can also follow me on Twitter or subscribe to my Twitter. I usually put a few posts a day just for my subscribers. Again, it's kind of a fun thing I do. It's $1 a month. So kind of like the Dollar Shave Club. So with that in mind, let's talk about this idea of volatility in the short term and volatility in the long term. And I got a little bit of a prop here. I want to share this post that I made on Twitter. Okay, so let's take a look at this post. Okay, so this is this illustration that I made, and I think you guys will find this interesting. So basically, if you're looking at prices right now, prices are very stable month to month, day to day, and really even year to year in dollar terms, right? So, what are the prices going to be next year for a hamburger? Well, they're probably going to be something like today's prices times 4% or something like that. Now, in 2020, we got up to, 8, 10% moves in certain of these prices over a year, and potentially in some categories even more, 20% for potentially things like hotel rooms or insurances and stuff. But overall, prices are relatively stable in dollar terms, which is sort of the first graph, right? But right now, and I'd expect that for the next 10 years, prices in dollar terms will kind of be in the same thing. We may have a little bit of inflation, then we'll slow down, then blah, blah, blah. But roughly speaking, the prices are going to increase in 10 years, right? Now, and again, this is just illustrative examples. Now, what about in Bitcoin terms? Well, because Bitcoin's appreciating with the dollar in general, prices are going down in Bitcoin. But as we know, there are bear markets in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin can fall 3x. It can fall to 75% of it, a quarter of its value. So what does that mean? That means the prices generally fall in Bitcoin over a long period, but over a short period, they could rise in Bitcoin. So I just illustrated that with this graph, where the price starts going up with Bitcoin now, and then it sort of trends down. So, if you're just interested in preserving your purchasing power over, the short term, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, if you really don't want your to lose a lot of your purchasing power, you don't want to buy Bitcoin. Therefore, people say, well, Bitcoin's it's risky, right? Now, it is true that Bitcoin has not ever, over a period of 4 years or longer, lost its value, but it can over a year or two. Now, how do I think this is going to play out in the future? Well, let's just go to this bottom chart here, which is sort of this Jeff Booth vision of the future. In 20 years or so, right, once we get to Bitcoin, I don't know, 10 million, I think we're going to have more or less goods and services or houses, things like that, are going to start being priced in a more stable fashion versus Bitcoin. So I think you're going to just see prices just steadily go down in Bitcoin. We're going to have this sort of Jeff Booth-like future where we're just going to have deflation, right? And I think that's an incredibly healthy world because, if your money just keeps on getting worth more and more and more, it's a great world. You can hang on to it. You don't, if you know that you don't have to spend it. It gives you a little extra time. If you want to delay it, you're going to get paid for delaying it. Okay. Doesn't mean you're not going to spend it, because life is finite, so you're going to want to spend it. But it just means you're going to feel so much better about living your life, because prices are just going to start going down very steadily. And again, we don't have that right now. We have this huge uncertainty. So buying Bitcoin today, you are subject to all this uncertainty. I don't think that will be the case in 20 years. Now, what about dollar prices? Well, dollar prices, as again, we saw right now, they're very steady. I think in 20 years, the dollar could be very volatile, right? And I think we could see 5x potentially moves inside of, a couple years, right? And so I just illustrated that here. So I think we could get into periods where the dollar becomes very unhinged relative to purchasing power. And so we get this sort of opposite effect. Now, in mathematics, this is an area I actually know a little bit about. There's this notion of taking a system and distorting it into another system, right? So here's sort of the system we are in today. Here's the system that we're in the future. And we're probably going to move somewhere between A and B in 20 years, right? And we're going to go there, we're going to drift there by what is called a homotopy. And, these homotopies, they're used in applied mathematics. It's a very advanced kind of subject, but, it's a fascinating subject. And I think it could explain how we get into this world that's very, very different than the world that we're in today. So anyways, that's my video. Check out the illustration I posted on Twitter. I also had this little post about it. You can also look at that. That's sort of my post today. Again, we're above 100K. We're 5 days away from Trump being elected. I'm incredibly bullish. But again, I am a long-term Bitcoin holder, and I advise people to absolutely hold Bitcoin for the long term and do not trade it. That's my view. I can talk a little bit about potentially trimming your position later in a very small way, and who knows? I may do some of that in 2025. I may not. I don't need the cash, so I'm happy just to watch my Bitcoin. But anyways, that's it. Again, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for following me. If you do, hit the follow button on YouTube, and I will catch you later. Thanks a lot.